Thanks very much, Tim, and thank you for the opportunity to participate today. If I could just go forward 2 slides, please. Thank you. So what I'm going to do today in the time available is just going to be a very brief overview of Starpharma's unique Dendrimer platform. It's a unique technology platform that can be used to improve the delivery of existing drugs, but also has developed some really exciting products, including most recently an antiviral nasal spray, which is already registered in more than 30 countries. The technology platform has allowed us to develop a deep portfolio of products, particularly in the Dendrimer delivery area, and I'll talk more what we call DEP, which is Dendrimer enhanced product, and I'll talk about some of those in subsequent slides. But we also have, and we're a little bit unusual in that we have a number of marketed products, either marketed through partners or marketed directly in some cases, in the case of the Viralis antiviral nasal spray, and those are distributed in a number of countries, and I'll go into that detail subsequently. We're well funded. We have a very good institutional shareholder base with some of the leading institutions both in Australia and also overseas. And as you can see across the bottom of the slide there, we also have a deep portfolio of partnerships. Now, next slide, please. So just very briefly touching on the portfolio of the products. So it's unusual that a company the size of Starpharma, we have about 50 staff, is able to develop such a deep portfolio of both marketed products, but also really exciting development candidates. So on the left-hand side, we have 3 phase 2 anti-cancer products, all of which are utilising our DEP technology, our DEP delivery technology. And beyond that, we have an extensive range of other products in our portfolio, which we will bring through and move into clinical development. The strategy for these products is to take them through to clinical proof of concept. So typically that would be the completion of phase 2, although in some instances could be earlier, and then to license the product. And I'll talk briefly about a couple of those candidates later in the presentation. And then in the bottom right-hand side, and I will talk briefly about these also, we've been able to sign up a number of really exciting partnerships using our delivery technology that do not require Starpharma to fund those programs. So the AstraZeneca program on the top there is being funded by AstraZeneca for well over $100 million. And we have a free carried interest through royalties and milestones, and I'll talk about those. Next slide, please. But first of all, I just want to touch on some of the highlights of the Dendrimer enhanced product, or the DEP benefits. So this is a technology platform, a true platform that can be used in it's very versatile. So it can be used with small molecule drugs. It can be used with antibody drug conjugates. It can be used with radiotherapeutics, which is a growing category in the cancer space. And what the Dendrimer technology delivers to both Starpharma and to our partners is the ability to improve the efficacy of agents, and I'll specifically talk about some of the cancer drugs that we're working on, to improve the efficacy through tumour targeting. So we get 40 to 70 times as much drug in tumour tissue delivering it with a Dendrimer than you would with the original drug. We can take an off-patent cancer drug, or any drug actually, an off-patent drug, and then apply the technology to it, put it on our Dendrimer scaffold, and that will allow us to get 20 years new patent life. So we can essentially get renewal of the patents, improved safety, improved pharmacokinetics, so long-acting products, whereas ordinarily they might require multiple injections. We can develop long-acting products, improving solubility, and great flexibility. So there are a range of benefits for the technology. Next slide, please. And the technology also allows us, as I mentioned earlier, to work in a whole range of different areas. So on the left-hand side there is chemotherapeutics or anti-cancer agents, and we actually already have 3 clinical and a number of other preclinical agents in that category. AstraZeneca has signed a multi-product license in that category. Merck has also signed a multi-product license in the Merck has also entered into a partnership in the antibody drug conjugate area. We have a partnership with Genentech. And so there's a lot of potential application in the oncology space that also can be applied in radiotheranostics. That's a particular kind of anti-cancer therapy where you're using radioactive agents. But it's a very flexible technology platform. And we can also use it in non-oncology, and we have a partnership with the Chinese company Chaisun. We've also applied it to antiviral agents. So if you go to the next slide, please. What I wanted to do in this very brief presentation is really just to use one of our partnerships with AstraZeneca, which is one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, and to illustrate the way in which the technology can be used. What we did in this situation is the Dendrimer technology was able to overcome a significant problem with a cancer drug which they had in development, which was very efficacious, but unfortunately excessively toxic. By using the Dendrimer technology, we were able to improve its therapeutic index by more than 20-fold, which is a really very significant improvement. And in return for that, we entered into a multi-product license with AstraZeneca. The first product in that category is a drug called AZD0466, which is actually now one of the leading hematology oncology development candidates for AstraZeneca. And we have a milestone and royalty deal with AstraZeneca for the use of our technology without any investment from us. And that will allow us to, based on the estimates that we've received from AstraZeneca in terms of the size of that market, allow us to potentially yield significant revenue, so up to $2.4 billion for that one single drug. It's a very scalable technology, and you can see in the middle there, we can sign multiple partnerships, which give us a free carried interest in lots of areas and lots of therapeutic areas as well. Next slide, please. So AZD0466 is a really exciting oncology drug. It's already in clinical trial with AstraZeneca. We've received $7 million US in milestones. The total milestones are $124 million. About half of that before approval, half post-approval. They are aiming for an expedited approval pathway, and then we have escalating royalties downstream. So, as I said, the potential to earn in excess of $2.4 billion in relation to that product alone. And this technology can be used for multiple such products. So with the partnerships really offer very significant opportunity. Next slide, please. Very briefly, we also have a number of internal programs. There are 3 phase 2 oncology products. They're up on the middle, on the left and middle of the screen: dep-docetaxel, dep-carbazitaxel, dep-irinotecan. And each one of those is based on a highly successful oncology drug that was selling anywhere between about 600 million and 3 billion per annum. And we've taken those drugs, we've put them into our Dendrimer technology, we've patented those, so we now own the rights to those Dendrimer versions, and they are all now in phase 2 clinical trials. We're expecting to complete those trials in 2022, and we will intend also to then license those to third parties in return for milestones and royalty deals. So this gives us very significant optionality. Next slide, please. Very briefly, one of those, dep-carbazitaxel, is a prostate cancer drug. Carbazitaxel is marketed by Sanofi, Jevtana. There are a number of advantages there outlined in that side-by-side comparison, including significant improvements in safety. We've seen that in our human clinical trials, which are ongoing. The lack of need to pre-treat patients to avoid allergic reactions which occur with the original drug, and a significantly longer patent life than the existing product. So there's a very exciting opportunity. Next slide, please. I won't go through the results here, but the preliminary efficacy results that we reported last year in prostate cancer really underline the potential for this technology platform. we've seen excellent levels of efficacy in what are very heavily pre-treated patients. We've seen better response rates than the original drug in terms of PSA decrease, and we saw very high levels of activity even in very heavily pre-treated patients. Next slide, please. One example of these is this elderly gentleman with prostate cancer who's had 33 cycles of other therapy. He has to date received 7 cycles of our product and has achieved an 80% reduction in his PSA. And you can see there is significant shrinkage also in the cancer tissue. Now, very briefly, in the just final remaining minutes, I just want to talk briefly about another product which we've developed recently, Viralis. This is an antiviral nasal spray, which we developed in response partly to the coronavirus pandemic, but with an agent which we had already approved and registered in a number of markets in other products. This is a topical antiviral nasal spray to be used together with vaccines, and especially useful in situations where perhaps vaccines are not efficacious. We all know that vaccines are not 100% effective. And you can see some of the data there in the middle on the right-hand side. What this product delivers is a very convenient, easy to use product, which can be additive to vaccines, masks, and other prevention strategies, highly active in a whole range of the variants, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, Omicron, more than 99% inactivation by the active ingredient of those, and in a very convenient format for use in travel situations, public transport, healthcare, any other crowded environments. So this is an exciting product. We've launched, it's already registered in a number of markets, registered in more than 30 countries around the world. If you could please go to the next slide. Performs very well in a competitive sense. On the bottom left there, you can see its performance vis-a-vis some of them, another marketed antiviral topical nasal spray there, which is a Boots product, but also there's a Vicks product, which is got a similar profile. Our product is far more effective in terms of inactivation of the coronavirus or the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And if you just move to the next slide, as I mentioned, already registered in 30 countries around the globe. This has been possible because of the regulatory strategy which we've employed and the fact that this was a known active, which was already on which we had a very significant body of data. This is registered in a number of countries, Europe, UK, countries in Asia, Middle East, and we'll be rolling that out into other countries. And we're seeing significant growth in revenues in that area. And just finally, the next slide, please, or the final slide. So Starpharma has a strong balance sheet. We've got more than 50 million cash on hand. We're seeing strong revenue growth in the Viralis space, and we're seeing significant progress across multiple programs in our DEP area. So the clinical candidates I mentioned, as well as those really exciting partnerships. So I think I'll leave it there, Tim, and leave some time for Q&A.
Thank you, Jackie. There's a lot to get through there. I appreciate that. I'm just back on Viralis. What are your plans for the product going forward, and which launches are next? And there were some questions in regards to India and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, so we've recently registered the product in Saudi Arabia. We've also recently had the product registered in the UK. So in terms of, our strategy is really to roll it out globally. We're focusing on markets where there's a good commercial opportunity, where we're seeing good engagement with distributors in those markets. Sometimes we focus on markets where the vaccination rates are not as high for a variety of reasons. So Vietnam has been an extremely positive market for us. We've seen really very, very significant demand there. Their vaccination rates have lagged, and often the vaccines which are available are perhaps less efficacious than some of the ones in some other more developed markets. So we'll be rolling it out across all of those, all of the main regions, Europe, Asia, Middle East, We will also be, in terms of launches, I expect the next launches will be most likely UK and in the Middle East. The Middle East was an interesting market. We're looking to actually get it into the Middle East ahead of the World Cup. So we're looking to roll it out across not only Saudi, but also into a range of other markets there.
That makes sense. We've just got time for one more question. So you've got a lot of programs, a lot of options here. Which programs should investors be kind of focused on right now?
Well, I mean, we're seeing progress across all of the programs, but I've dedicated quite a lot of time here to the DEP technology because, you know, that the DEP technology is a key driver of value for the company. We've got three clinical stage assets internally, and then we've got these really exciting partnerships which are progressing. AstraZeneca has opened up these new clinical trials for the AZD0466 products. So I think that partnerships in both partnered and internal DEP programs, as well as Viralis, certainly there's progress across all of those.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for your time.